Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and today I'm back with book number 2 of Old School April 2024, and that is Camp Haunted Hills, book number 2, Some of My Best Friends Are Monsters by Bruce Coville. So, this book was a lot of fun. I mainly read this book for the prompt, read a book from the decade that you were born, and this was from the 1980s, so I'm an 80s kid, so what can I say? Well, mostly I'm a 90s kid, but that's neither here nor there. But I read this book because I was born in the 80s, and this came out in 1988. And this is book number 2 in the Camp Haunted Hills series. And so I actually broke one of my cardinal rules when reading this book, and I kind of didn't realize it. I hardly ever read a book series out of order unless it's an anthology series. And this is not an anthology series. This series, there's 3 books in the series, so I guess it's a trilogy of books, but they're not numbered. There's no numbers on them. The only way you would know this is if you started to read the book or you looked it up ahead of time. Now, back in the day, you couldn't really look it up ahead of time on the internet. So reading this back in the 80s would have been kind of difficult to know, is this book 1, book 2, book 3, is a standalone, what is this? Because this book, as I was reading it, I realized, they're referencing lots of stuff that I don't understand because I didn't read book 1. So that's my thing I'm going to say, first of all. If you want to read this book, go read book 1 first and then come back to this book, because otherwise you will be a little bit confused. I feel like I was able to follow along and track with mostly everything. There were just a couple of story points that I thought, what's that about a Sasquatch? Like, there's no Sasquatch in this book, so what's going on with the Sasquatch? And why is there a ghost that's talking to the main character? I don't really get it. But in this book, there is a kid named Stuart who is at Camp Haunted Hills, which Camp Haunted Hills is like a movie-making camp, which sounds awesome. I would have loved this as a kid. So they go to camp, and they're making movies all summer long, learning about special effects, doing all sorts of things, and there are some spooky things happening in Camp Haunted Hills, because this is no ordinary camp. Or is it? Is everything just special effects, or are those monsters real? In this book, Stuart, the main character, he has a ghost friend named Robert, who has lived at the camp, well, I guess unlived at the camp? I don't know how that works. But he's been at the camp for a really long time, and he's friends with Stuart, the main character. And Brenda is another friend of Stuart's, and she doesn't know about Robert. And so Stuart is always talking to Robert when he appears, but no one else can see him. And there are some interesting things happening. There's a bully named Lucius who does not like Stuart, and when Robert decides to play a joke on Lucius, things get a little out of hand. In fact, they could get a little monstrous. This book is a lot of fun. There are all kinds of monstery creatures in here. You have like Dr. Jekyll, you've got a werewolf, you've got the mummy, you have ghosts, you have talk of Sasquatch. Like, there's all these different things, and it's kind of fun. It was a little bit of it reminded me of a 1980s kind of monstery movie with the hijinks and sorts of things. It's almost like this. If you took Monster Squad and put it in The Parent Trap, like the old Haley Mills Parent Trap, that is the vibe of this book. So it's kind of wild, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed reading it. It was a quick read. It was like 120 pages, if even that. Pages flew by real quick. There's also full-page illustrations in here, so that takes up a lot of pages. And it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun to read. I feel like the predicaments for the characters were pretty well thought out. There were some things I could guess ahead of time and think, oh, well, that's what's happening right there. That's what's going to happen there. And so if you're paying close attention, you can probably guess what's going to happen in this book. But it's a fun journey to get there. I thought it was really well done. Especially, there was a part near the end that I did not know. I was thinking, how are they going to get out of this, and what's going to get around this? And then they reveal something that made me think, oh, okay, I get how you're going to do it. And that's a great idea. I think that's clever. So Bruce Coville, he is a very prolific author who's written a lot of different kinds of books. This is, trying to decide what book number this is that I have read by him. I've read quite a few Bruce Coville books. This might be like my 6th or 7th book by him that I've read, and I think that he is a great author at capturing kid banter. He's really good at that. And also creating kind of an emotional punch in his books. I think that's one of the interesting things about him, is he often includes some kind of an emotional tagline or through line, I guess you could say, throughout his books that really, I think, helps to deepen the storylines that could be rather simple. Like, for instance, here you have Stuart, who he is really worried about fitting in. That is like the thing he's so afraid of. He knows what he loves on one hand, like he loves movie making, he loves the movie magic, all that kind of stuff, but he's really scared of the ways that people are going to treat him, and people do treat him badly, including Lucius, this bully. And so there's a through line there for him not wanting to be left out and not wanting anyone to think that he's, not part of the group. So I think that that was a really well done piece of this book, and I think that Bruce Coville captured that very well in the characterization. This book is in first person, so it's told from Stuart's perspective throughout the book, and I think that it really fits well, the storyline, and it fits him as a personality, and I think that it was well done. Bruce Coville knows what's up. He knows what's up. The monster action in this book is a lot of fun too. You get some really great monster scenes, and there's some great illustrations of the monsters in the book. So if you're wondering how much monster is there in this book, it's there. That's quite a bit of the storyline. And I think that the monster action was a lot of fun. It was probably my favorite parts of this book. Also, I will say there is some mystery that is obviously not revealed in book 1 because it continues into book 2 about Robert, the ghost friend. There's a lot of hints here, and I believe Bruce Coville does not do stuff just willy-nilly. He thinks it through, and he puts stuff in that he's thinking about for later, because that is often how he wrote this book. He really uses Alfred Hitchcock's rule of 3, where you introduce something 3 times to the reader, and then you can use it as a plot point. And so he does that a ton in this book. That is really a piece of how he writes these. And he mentions multiple times that Robert's past is very mysterious. And Stuart is wondering, why is Robert here? What does Robert want? And there's not really any explanation of that. And there is a 3rd book in this trilogy. And so I'm curious if that book will dive into that or not. I don't know, because I don't have it and I haven't read it. So I will be curious to see if that's a piece of this book. So, have you ever read these books, Camp Haunted Hills? I found this one on a whim at a used bookstore and thought, oh, well, that looks kind of fun. It'll be monstery, and it could fit some of the prompts for Old School April 2024. So let's go for it. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this book. At the end of the day, I would give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think it was a lot of fun. It was very simple and very straightforward. And like I said, I could guess pretty much everything that was happening, but I did really enjoy it though. So don't take the 3.5 as like, oh, maybe Shaun didn't like it very much. I did like this book. I just didn't absolutely love it. And I wish there was a little more to it. I wish there was a tiny bit more with the mummy. The mummy is a little bit of a side piece here, but is a big part of the story still. So I definitely think that this is a fun book. If you like monster stories, you like camp stories, definitely check this one out. It's a lot of fun. It definitely has an 80s vibe because there's that 80s kind of banter and humor. So definitely go into it knowing that. But otherwise, this is a great, fun read. I would recommend it during summertime probably as like kind of a summer camp kind of feel read throwback. That's what I would recommend. Have you read any of these books? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know if you've read these or if Robert's mystery ever does get explained. I'll have to go look for book 3 because now I am a little curious. So that's where that half star comes from. I'm curious about what happens next. All right, until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.